Is this what you call grooming? How long you gotta groom someone? How long does it take to groom someone for the appropriate function? I've got an article here. I found this on October 29th, the morning of October 29th, which is a major day because the concern was that 2 years ago there was a report that was allegedly produced as a joint operations paradigm connected to chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear weapons disposal. It was presumably a joint project. And see, when my father was in the military, he did joint operations. That's why he was on Air Force bases, even though he was in the Marine Corps. And it was dated for my father's birthday, which is also my sister's birthday. And I found it while I was on the street. And I've already acknowledged that earlier in the year, I actually evaluated various checklists in this manual and discussed COVID-19 in accordance with an understanding of how it would appear if one approached it from a perspective of trying to identify elements connected to a CBRN attack, as was described in this manual. I have this article, and in it says that in the book Total Recall, that was concerning the relationship between former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and his allegedly ex-wife Maria Shriver, although there are conflicting reports about whether their divorce has been confirmed, that it was on January 4th, 2011, when he and Shriver entered a therapist's office for a meeting initiated by her the day after his term as governor of California came to an end. Then it discusses how they sat down in front of the therapist, and it was the therapist who first broached the subject of him being a father of an illegitimate child or a child out of wedlock. And then there was a situation from there. This was January 4th of 2011. Now there's an article. There's also an article stated for January 17th of 2020. Maria Shriver talks mindful bokeh 2020. And it says that Maria Shriver was giving a lecture at a hospital in Boca Raton. He's talking very loudly. It's very important that right now somebody else making a sales call is talking over this or providing an undertone. I just want to make sure. Can you hear him? Yeah, right? It's very important that that's what you guys are focused on instead of this, which is the point, because this discusses how she did this lecture at the Boca Raton Regional Hospital's Peaceful Mind, Peaceful Life initiative. And going into 2020, did this happen after January 4th of 2020? Because 7 years after January 4th of 2011 would have been, 2019? So this would have been after the period during which hospitals are required to keep billing records, or that medical professionals are required to keep billing records on site. And then after that, if this was in Florida, or it might be different than if it was in California, right? And there's some contestation because when I worked, you kept it on site for 7 years, and then for at least 3 years, you warehoused it before you were able to destroy the records. Where I worked, that was the policy. On site for 7 years. After 7 years, you warehouse it for at least 3 years before you destroy it, in case something comes up. But when I tried to get my records while I was being trafficked on the street, they said, well, it's more than 7 years. We've already disposed of them. The other place I worked at, the actual Department of Public Health, still had them. But the subcontractor with the novel dual diagnosis program, they didn't have it. They had already gotten rid of it. Did Maria Shriver go to Florida, and do this talk on site at this hospital to have anything connected to that therapy session with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where only goodness knows what it was billed under, in order to have anything to do with the Banyan Treatment Center's mental health program in Boca Raton. Banyan is a computer programming systematology that I know of from when I was young. I was exposed to Banyan when I was still a minor, let's put it that way. And it wasn't about mental health treatment, at least not at the time. The ironic thing is, if this date where this talk occurred was after January 4th, but before January 17th, which is what I understand, it's kind of corollary with what happened to me, where exactly 7 friggin' years later, I had to be entered into a alleged mental health hold as what? Reprogramming? Were you making sure to uphold somebody else's benchmarking strategy on trying to invalidate or discredit me from being able to, I guess in this case, provide for my own legal assistance because nobody has provided me with any in this entire time? Okay, here's another question. Did Maria Shriver do some sort of swap out with Arnold as her purse in Florida in order to make him the equivalent of her Russian mistress as some way to draw down on him having been actually born in another country? And was this part of some pussy power strategy where some women thought that they were going to get one over on their husbands for their infidelity, when in effect what they're doing is aiding and abetting the trafficking of other women? See, this is the problem with this kind of women's empowerment model you're working. You've got an old man that has made me his personal custom retirement system offset, right? And all of you women in leadership refuse to actually address the fact that other women and other children are literally being trafficked for whatever you considered your scheme was. Whatever you thought was acceptable is predicated upon trafficking and exploiting us. Who is in your network that is so powerful and important that the rest of us can be sacrificed? And in the meantime, if that is actually what she did, if she actually did that and she had support from other women, including women in politics or even members of her family, how many other men are in a position where women are sexually or otherwise extorting them and trying to discredit them? How many men were forced to get a mental health assessment because they were literally being tortured in order to provide some sort of leverage in a long-term strategy? I'm sorry, I just saw this a couple days ago. I know you want to talk about, when that was happening, I was on all of these currents, including currents that were connected to reissues by the Treasury that I understand were connected to to finding out that the actual original issues were at least unsustainable, if not actually proven to be fraudulent, and so they were reissued. If I proved they were fraudulent, why didn't you contact me and say, guess what? Yes, you are right. That was actually fraud, and we are going to acknowledge it was fraud, and we are going to work. You haven't done that in years. And those issues ended up being used as leverage to finance another school shooting, just so you know. And the same pattern happened just 2 months ago, when somebody created a fraudulent transaction through the Department of Treasury in order to swap over or turn over another school shooting from another country. And what's happened since then? After they set that up, not only did they engage in heinous election-related activities in this country, but supposedly a young person in another country of Chechen descent ended up beheading his teacher. I'm friggin' serious. That school shooting that they were messing with was in Chechnya. You let them leverage it for a political campaign, and now you got you got the vice president down here to swap out children from fucking Texas for who?